Okay. Yeah, so I added the first agenda item here. This is about the native histograms implementation. So native histogram support for Kubernetes metrics is going alpha in 136 in the upcoming release. So far, what we have done in that is for all histogram metrics that support the classic histogram format today, for all components, control plane components, those only those metrics are going to support the native histograms format also, which are not registered in the init method. So why is that? Is because we wanted to control the enablement of the native histograms, the new feature behind a feature gate for every component. And so for that, we need to first parse the feature gates once the component boots up. And so if there are any metrics that are getting registered or created within the init method, that init method does not wait for the feature gate parsing. So that means those metrics that are created in the init method, they bypass all the native histogram options, even if the feature gate was turned on for native histograms. So that was one thing that we had discovered while we were working on this feature in the last cycle. And at that time, we had said that what we can do is probably just change all the init registrations to lazy registrations, to explicit register calls, so that we can make sure that those metrics are only created once the feature gates have been parsed. The issue now with that is I started creating that PR. The issue is for out of tree controllers, especially for the client Go metrics that use these metrics, they were relying on the init registrations to have automatically registered those metrics in their Prometheus registry. If we do this, if we do not automatically register, like take out the registrations out from init, we will be breaking those consumers.
And
That was brought up in this comment. Yes.
yeah, and do native histogram affect these metrics, these gauge and counter metrics? Like, do we need to have these here?
No, it's only for histograms. I don't know why I created this for
Okay,
gauge encounters.
so um, I'm just trying to. So I'm not sure what this provider is, but this is the only thing that is affected by the histogram stuff.
Uh, this is just leader election. If you check the
Yeah,
REST client metrics
because if that's
or
not the
work,
case, then um, I'm just trying to because uh, if none of this is affected by the histogram options, then why do we need to base on these explicitly? I mean, these could be in it, right?
yeah, I guess I just wanted consistency for all metrics. That's why I just moved everything out so that we don't like differentiate between histograms and counters like that. Um,
Okay.
but that's only for leader election. So if you go to the work
Yeah.
queue metrics or REST client metrics, I think there is a bunch of histograms there.
Mm, yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, I didn't see this. I
Thought
was
too
like,
deeply. Yeah. Maybe there are more metrics. These were the ones that just I just started off with. Anyway, this PR is in draft, so maybe there are more such metrics in client Go which need to be addressed. Like our options are that we are okay with out of tree controllers not being able to use native histograms until the feature goes beta and defaults to on. Or we provide an alternative way for them to somehow use the feature. Yeah. I haven't thought, like, I don't know about the alternatives also. This is just some blocker that was brought up, I think, some weeks ago, so I just wanted to mention it in the SIG.
I think um, I mean, if that's the case, and we don't want to, we don't have to kind of just maintain an oversight on these after this goes beta, then it's fine. But if in the future there's anything in feature gates or any particular option that needs to be applied to all histogram metrics, we'll face the same problem
Yeah.
where we want to have these, because if there's, for example, a conversion method down below that, changes these to, um, based on what the metrics backend prefers and moves these to native histograms from classic histograms or whatever based on the negotiation protocol. Um, yeah, then ideally there should be something that, yeah, I think this is a broader issue where these metrics are not, uh, we don't have the ability to kind of manipulate these.
Yeah. I thought in general we were trying to go away from the init registrations, or that was my thinking. I don't know if you've thought about this scenario of
Yeah.
like out of tree controllers before or not. But I think in my head, I was thinking that we are trying to move to this pattern of like making explicit register calls for all metrics.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I personally believe that's the better way to do this. But of course, we will need to, um, this change is affected by having to work around and just ensuring backward compatibility as much as possible, which is what I see here. This is, of course, what we want in the future, where it's explicit and we can, because this allows us to have manipulation or, kind of
Control.
change the behavior of these. Yeah.
Yeah.
But this doesn't. So, um,
That they're working on the internet. Yeah. So there's no, yeah, they're working on it right now. Yep, me too.
sorry, I didn't quite get you there, Eddie.
No, no, sorry. I was supposed to be on mute. I apologize. It's my fault.
Okay.
How about I open up an issue describing this and then we
Yeah.
drive some consensus there for the next steps?
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds good.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, they might have to, I mean, yeah, there's no way this is not breaking, of course, but, you know, it's breaking for a good reason. So,
Damian mentioned in the talks that we can depend on build tag, uh, but I don't know the context.
What do you mean?
In the docs, Damian was suggest that we can depend on the build tag for init functions. So we can depend on the legacy init function and the new one that support the native histogram.
Is
sorry,
is there a link to that comment? Can you share that?
Yes, sure. Give me a second.
Thank you.
are we sure that this cannot be moved? I mean, okay, this is us. But yeah, so are we sure this cannot be moved to like, somewhere in the main function, maybe? I mean, yeah, this is breaking, sure, but this doesn't, I'm not sure what this means. Control runtime cannot stop doing that. Base rate
I didn't get
where,
that.
yeah. If something else registers a metric in an init in its own package, that does not affect us. That's the, that can still happen. Um,
Oh, Norelden, you meant Damien commented on our notes doc for the agenda item.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, build tags to have two separate init functions. I don't even know how that works. We'll have to explore that.
yeah, that that still won't solve this, I believe, because it's just, a deferred call. I mean, it works the same way as defer. So it would basically be the same thing as putting it in an init and calling it later on. I mean, down in that init. So you can have multiple inits in multiple files in the same package and stuff like that. But yeah. Okay, this is indeed concerning since there's a problem with build tags to have two init functions. Legacy one. I don't see how build tags would fix this because what happened? I mean, this is not build
Well, maybe he
specific code.
means, is there an option for users to choose which init function they invoke?
Yeah,
Because
that would.
that way we can, yeah.
So if we have build tags there, and essentially, these the pattern usually is the build tags are tied to, your it could be anything, but it's usually so in Node Exporter, it's Go OS and Go Arch. But users could supply an environment variable, and based on that, we decide
Yeah,
that what they want to do.
yeah. Maybe that is something we should explore. So give an option to
Um,
the out-of-tree controllers to also use native histograms somehow.
okay, so we break this. So we do this change for in tree controllers, and for out of tree, we make this opt in or opt out. No, this would be opt in, but
No,
they would
we don't
have to
do,
supply that.
we don't do this change for in-tree controllers.
No, I mean, this would be done for in tree control. I mean, nothing would break for in tree controllers once this is done.
Right, right,
But for out tree controllers, they would have to supply that environment. They would
right.
need to just make sure that that's it.
Something to trigger the enablement of the native histogram options, which
But
will
even
invoke that init. Go ahead.
yeah, but even with another init, how do we aim to fix this in that? Do we make sure that the native histogram stuff is called before in that init, and these metrics are initialized? Because if we can do that, then we can just do an if there and do that in this init itself. And,
We
we still need to think about how we go from this back to a build agnostic thing where, this does introduce complexity because we are just doing this for conditional inits. So I don't know how backward compatible this is, and if we decide to go back to a non-build kind of thing that we have right now, and how hard that would be. Hmm,
Okay, let's start with just putting all of these things in one place
yeah,
first.
yeah,
Let me create that issue. Yeah, this is something that we would like to tackle for 137 I mean, 136 is not released yet, so we have some time to address this. It's not super urgent. But I think we definitely should address this, because if there is more features in future for metrics that require the same setup, like there has to be a way to apply options to metrics after feature
Yeah.
gate parsing.
Yeah, I think in general, we should not have init in component base entirely, because
Yeah.
that limits us on, whatever's happening within that init and
Right.
our ability to kind of work on that. So yeah, awesome. Thank you, Richard, for bringing this up. I don't see anything else in the agenda. So guess this is it. Thank you everyone for joining. I'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Yes, bye.